right, doing that. Yeah, let me land for a second and share a little bit of the briefly the backstory as to why I initiated this session. I've seen HIFA see a lot of activity, a lot of work being done, and also some challenge around that work and sometimes inability to do work. And we're navigating a lot of challenges around the discussions of work. And in that, I think we are not yet quite capable of navigating the interpersonal stuff that pops up whenever we fall into those conflicts that show up, or at least the way it shows up is interpersonal conflict, or at least that's how we explain it. And I have done some really cool and interesting work with Peter in another context before, and he has taught me to a large extent that these are characteristics of the group of people, not of singular people that show up within HIFA, within this system. So what I really want to start working towards, and with each of you that are currently here, we've had discussions on these topics in different contexts and different discussions, to really work on the ability of HIFA, the group of people of HIFA, to be able to navigate these challenges and to deal with the differences that show up, to really integrate them rather than to fall into conflict or fight or avoid each other. And for that, we need to learn some tools. We need to have some tools to do that work and to get better at that. Because currently there's a lot of push and pull going on to navigate these challenges rather than really creating a good container for us to hold it and learn from it together. And my intent for today is to explore, really for myself actually, to really step back and to hand over to Peter here as a facilitator to introduce us to SCT, which is a system that can help us, and Peter will outline more how that works, to help us integrate differences. So, and to build capacities as a system to get better at these differences when they show up, and to hold them and to learn from them. So there will be some theory, I hope that we can understand a little bit, but my hope is really that we can root that in some experience. And if we can experience some of that ability to get better at that, to really hold those differences and to learn from each other, to really empathize, I'm very happy, and this would be a success for me, so that we can really start to work towards a heartbeat that we get better and better at integrating these differences as they show up. That's my little lead-in. That's really what I'm hoping for today. And having said that, I would like to just open the floor for a second for a brief check-in before I hand over to Peter. And for that check-in, my framing is, let's keep it short so we can really start to dive into the content of the work. So maybe express what's alive for you, but focus on the feeling rather than the explanation, the story around it. And I will start with that myself. I sense a little bit of nervousness, right? I think I'm attached to the outcome. This is dear to my heart. It is important, and I'm attached to HIFA, and I want HIFA to have these capabilities. So speaking that out, I can let it go a little bit, and I sense the curiosity that shows up. Yeah, that's me. Check. And with that, I'll hand over to Vivian.
Thank you. My hands are sweaty. I'm sensing there's a little bit of weight in my back. Those are my physical kind of sensation that's emerged. There's gratitude to Peter and Joost for organizing this. Meantime, I'm also a sense of sadness and disappointment of the people who said yes, that's a commitment, and didn't show up. And that's what I'm sensing into at the moment. I'm going to pass it to Carly.
Thank you. Yeah, me too. I was really excited to see so many people that were accepting the invite. So I am a little disappointed that more people aren't showing up, but I think this is so vitally valuable. And um, I was actually shocked that I seem to think that I'm like the super get along with everyone person and loving and caring. And I show up big in my community here, and to show up into an organization and feel so much conflict and tension and not know where it's coming from or how to like solve it, and also have been highly motivated to help come up with the processes. And so I hope to like get some tools today, but come up with these processes around like conflict resolution and how do we play this big game, because I see now that there is a lot of personalities coming in, and how do we create a safe space for everybody to come in and play and bring their talents and their skills and everything. And I'm just so grateful that you guys are taking the time with us today. And yeah, thank you. And with that, Troy. Sarah! Sweet.
Thank you. Hi. My intuition is quite heightened today. And not, but it's all kind of blurry. I came in here and really no expectations, just a lot of curiosity. So that's where I'm at right now. So I'll pass it on to Sarah. We're doing a check-in.
Hello, everyone. How's everyone feeling? I'm feeling okay, actually. I've been sleeping an extraordinary amount. I'm talking over 12 hours, which is so unusual because usually I sleep about 4. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of shifting energy, a lot of grounding, which I'm really grateful for, finally. And I'm feeling optimistic that things are starting to align. I just feel like I'm coming out of hibernation now, and looking forward to seeing how things evolve. I'm busy working on preparing things for our API integration, which I'm super excited about, and really looking forward to continuing to spread the word with seeds. I'm meeting with fantastic people in person a lot as well here in Ibiza, so that's really great as well. I'm not sure who else is to check in, so I don't know who to pass it to.
We'll pass it to
Pass it
Peter.
to me, Sarah. Sorry. Sorry. My wife's phone. So when you pass it to me, Sarah, I will finish the check-in.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm excited to work with you guys today. I'm inspired by your goals, and I can see how SCT resonates with that, with your purpose. And I'm really curious what we can, what both approaches can do for each other. So we're a small group so far, which is the good and the bad news. The good news is that we can work very concentrated and focused and intensively. All voices can be heard easily. And of course, it's a pity that we don't have more people that have the experience. Anyway, I'm excited to start. Check.
And with that, let me wrap up the check-in, and I just hand it over straight back to you, Peter, for
Yes.
lead us through this this session.
Okay. Thanks, Joost. Let's start. I will share my screen and take you through the PowerPoint that I sent to you, because I can imagine that just looking at it as it is now, doesn't say that much yet. And Just want to check whether you all can see my screen now.
Yep. Sure do.
Yep. Okay, so yes, I called this workshop regenerative teamwork as that's a very central concept in your work, regeneration, and I find that that's also very much what we are doing in SCT. So let's see where we go. First, the goals for this workshop. Well, I would like you to learn the basics of regenerative teaming, and that is SCT. We'll talk about SCT in a few seconds. And another goal would be for you to get curious about its potential for HIFA. So when these two goals are met, I think we have done a good job. We can check at the end of this workshop. So first I will lead you through a very basic introduction to system-centered training. It's system-centered training is big. It's a big theory. There's a lot written about it. It's a very scientific. It's a scientific method, and yet you can also condense it in a few sentences, and that's what I like about it very much. So you can immediately catch some of its essence and some of its flavor. And of course, you can study it for years. After the introduction, we will make a force field about teaming in HIFA. So then we will look what the driving and restraining forces are in the way you, as a group, as a team in HIFA, work towards your goal. And we will focus, of course, on the behaviors, what helps and what doesn't help. And then we have like a kind of first diagnosis of where you stand. And then we will start practicing the basic method of SCT. We'll call that functional subgrouping. More about that later. And we'll finish by looking at how you could apply this in HIFA, if at all. Of course, it's dependent on how you see that. Any questions or remarks so far on the goals and the agenda?
None for me.
Okay. Then let's take the first step.
Yeah, maybe quickly just outline that we'll have a little break in the middle.
Yes. Yes. We'll have a 20-minute break right in the middle. So that will be, for me in the Netherlands, it will be at 1:20, but it will be different for everyone. Okay. So when you strive for a regenerative worldwide economy, then the question is, do you recognize any of these behaviors as you work in your HIFA teams? So fakeness, redundancy, yes buts, irritation, withdrawals, boredom, repetitive patterns, dominance, submissive patterns, compliance, defiance patterns, sarcasm, unreliability. I could go on for quite a while. Just want to know whether this also takes place in your team like it does in every other team in the world. Can I have some responses, reactions there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Especially like on the dominant submission authority stuff, like where the thing I got really freaked out about was like, oh, this is decentralized, like this is going to be great, no authority. And I get in and there's all these authorities and dependencies starting to create. And it's like, wait,
Right.
well, that's what
Right.
we're doing here.
Right. So basically, Carly, you say, even though we are self-organized and we have maybe the illusion that we don't have these dominant submissive patterns, we do have them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can think of a whole bunch not on that list too that are unsettling.
Right. Any other recognitions of this list? Maybe Vivian or Sarah?
I actually am not in a team. I refuse to be in a team because I think I talked to someone. I've been involved with sort of in and out since June or May or June. And there's part of me, someone sort of enlightened me. It's like, I care. And because I sense into all of this and it doesn't reflect what they say, so I refuse to create a role. Because I believe, so because I am sensing all, not just HIFA itself, right? I'm also looking at the overall, because it's both, not just HIFA, but also the seed itself.
Yeah, so Vivian, I hear you say I'm not allocated to any specific team in HIFA.
No, I'm not. I don't have a role.
No.
I don't have a position.
Right. And do you communicate with other HIFA members?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And then when you look at that, do you then see any of these behaviors?
Oh, I can feel it. I can actually, my body resonate with it a lot, where there's like fire, there's like anger coming out as I look at it.
Yeah.
My body, it's from the gut.
That's great. So that's great information for the group. So we'll get to that later on when we start to practice, right? And Sarah, do you see any behaviors in this list that you recognize?
Well, do they not say unless it's a hell yes, then it's a no? So sorry, but I have to say it's a hell yes.
Good, it's a hell yes. Great.
Yeah.
So that's simply, it's simply so all of the above is normal human behavior. This is what we see in any context, right? So, and I wrote, welcome to the world of group dynamics. This behavior is related to group dynamics. And so first thing that you can say about it, it's normal. But the second thing that you can say about it is this kind of behavior does not recycle energy for your goals. It depletes energy in general. And that leads to the question, like you as HIFA have the question, okay, how can you do it then differently? And are there alternative ways of teaming that regenerate rather than deplete, and giving you a better chance to reach your goals? That really is the question. And in the next slide, we say theory of living human systems, as we think this is a very powerful theory, and the SCT as its method that can help us get to a regenerative group dynamics. It was developed by Yvonne Aghazarian in the 90s. She just died a few years ago. And she not only developed a theory, but also a method that makes the theory workable and actionable. And the method is called System-Centered Training, or SCT. And the lovely thing about the theory is, although it's very comprehensive, you can also condense it to one sentence. And that sentence is, living human systems survive, develop, and transform from simple to complex through a developing ability to recognize differences and integrate them. So maybe a few things about this. Recognizing and integrating differences is central to this. Therefore, also Joost in his invitation talked about integrating differences. Aghazarian's point of departure is that we humans hate differences and we love similarities. So we see that at all levels. We don't like it when people have different opinions or different feelings, or look different from us, or have a different background, or have a different whatever. So we have a very strong tendency in ourselves to approach the similarity and to avoid or fight the difference. And that is a survival, that has to do with our survival instincts. And we're not going into that why that is, but it is an interesting point of departure. So from a survival standpoint, this could be a good thing. However, we will never develop and grow when we do not integrate differences. So there we are really there as humans. We are in a it's like a dilemma. Part of us wants to stay with the similarities, with people that are like us and with opinions that are like us. And the developing part in us needs the differences to develop. So that is, therefore, this is so much the basic of the theory that we as systems, living human systems, survive, develop, and transform from simple to complex through our ability to recognize differences and integrate them. We'll look further to what that means. And when you have any questions, just come in. So first we'll tell a bit more about this method, but very important to realize is that SCT, which is the method, is just a map, and it's not the terrain itself. And like you see here, the terrain itself, the picture of terrain is very beautiful. The map is very primitive, and probably SCT, when we look at it 100 years from now, the SCT map of the terrain may be very primitive. However, it is the best we have right now, and we orient ourselves to the map to navigate the terrain. And we never make the mistake, or try not to make the mistake, to think that the map is the terrain. So that's the first thing to know. The second thing to know about the theory is that, and I think this is, or I know that Akazarian's work is a breakthrough here, that she said, living human systems, we consider both individuals and groups as living human systems. And that may sound simple, but it's a very big axioma, so to speak. It means that you will look at individuals like you look at groups and vice versa. And maybe one little example to illustrate that. We talk in SCT a lot about open boundaries. And what we know from individuals is that sometimes people seem to be open to information, and sometimes people are closed. There's, when I'm like this, you may perceive me as closed to information. It's universally interpreted as body language for being closed. But the same goes for groups. Groups can be open and closed for information as well. And this is just one example, but that shows you that bringing this theory together around both individuals and groups is really a big step. Has not been done before in the social psychology, the realm of social psychology. Then we go, I just mentioned these closed boundaries. So these living human systems, both groups and individuals, have the ability to close and open their boundaries for information. And that's essential. That's an essential thing. We'll learn later that the central method of SCT is focused on opening those boundaries so information can get in. And what we'll also learn is that the survivor in us wants to close those boundaries. So here is what you say, this is the basic picture of what we call living human system. Living human system have a goal. It has a boundary that can open and close, and it exchanges information and energy with the environment. So that's the basic picture. This goal, we just already saw that goal when we talked about the nutshell, SET in a nutshell. The primary goal of every human living human system, is to survive, develop, and transform. Every living human system does that, meaning that you could say that for the time being we'll be in together as with 6 people for maybe a few hours. We are already a living human system, although it will be very short-lived, but we have a goal. We just mentioned the goals to learn more about this method. We have a boundary. We know who's here and who's not, although that boundary may shift a little when new people come in. And there's information that's being exchanged. So we have information being exchanged. So although there's no permanent quality to this team, already we qualify as living human system. Of course, there's living human systems like families or work groups or football teams or any combination of people with a common goal and a clear boundary is a living human system. And of course, each of us as individuals are also living human systems. And on all of that, you can apply this map. This is the map, so to speak. Any reactions or questions so far? Are you still there?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. I didn't lose you. Glad about that. Okay, so let's take the next step. There's one more interesting thing there's a ton of interesting things, but this is an important thing. Living human systems are never alone. They are always nested like Russian dolls. So every living human system is the context for another living human system. And that, of course, goes back to the individual, because the individual is not a context for another living human system. But they are nested. And that's very important because the influence of one living human system to the other is through these nested systems. And we always look at systems in threes. We look at threes. So when we consider a system, we look, what's the bigger context for that system? What is the bigger? And we look, what is this system the context for? So that's what we always look. Then another important thing is that a living human system is always moving toward its goal. And we already said that every living system has the goal of survival, development, and transformation, but it also has a secondary goal, as we call it. And that would be for Haifa to transform the world economy so that it becomes more regenerative. That's your secondary goal from an SET perspective. And based on what Kurt Lewins discovered in the 50s, there's always a force field of driving and restraining forces for a system moving towards its goal. And that's very important because when you can explore that force field, you get tons of clues where a team is. So that will be the first thing that we will do in a second. Then it's very important, how do we systematically weaken the restraining forces with SET? Because when you have your force field and you know, okay, this is driving for this team and this is restraining, well, then your real challenge is how to systematically weaken your restraining forces. And we have a triangle here. So first we look at role, goal, and context. And I'm not sure, are you familiar with holacracy, which is a way to organize role, goal, and context in such a way that it's very clear what the goals are and what the roles are and what the accountabilities are, etc., etc. So that's one way to look at it. The other one is communication, and the behaviors that you saw in the list earlier showed you a few things that we look at. And the third one is what we call phases of team development, and I will just spend a few words about that because we don't have enough time today to look at phase of team development, although that is extremely important in this work. So what we have found out, and when I say we, it's guys like Bjorn and Dennis and Shepard, all social psychologists. What we found out is that teams always move through recognizable phases of team development. And when you make that very simple, it is not simple, but it's nice to make it simple to get an idea. A team starts in flight. And in flight, a team denies its differences. It tries to hide its differences. So everyone is very nice to each other. And we have a lot of speculations. And there's a lot of social rituals in flight. When a team is able to move through flight, it will get through a transition phase, the flight to fight transition phase, it will get into fight. And for us, that's the good news when a team reaches the fight phase, because it then is able to see its differences. People will not deny the differences anymore, but feel safe enough in a sense to say, okay, I see this different and I feel different about this. Now, the fight phase is a very difficult phase to navigate through because very often teams get stuck in this phase. So we see like dominant submissive behavior patterns to manage the anxiety in the fight phase, and that can get stuck. So when in a team, dominance and submission are being grounded, that pattern may repeat itself because it works. It works when I stay submissive to the big guy who is dominant and say yes and do everything he says. However, he doesn't get my creativity. He doesn't get my soul, so to speak, because I will not give him that to him. That's a real big problem for a team. So that's what we see in fight, is that the differences become clear. And the real challenge there is learning to navigate fight, learning to make fight productive, and to let the team learn and grow in fight rather than stay stuck. And most teams that we work with, and we work with tons of teams, are stuck in the transition phase between flight and fight. So you see a lot of flight behavior, you see a lot of fight behavior. And the team doesn't move from there. So the third phase in this development is the cooperation phase. So there the differences are used. So then the team starts to realize that the fact that you are different from me is a resource for the team. So you start to use it. And of course, this is great when you reach this phase. And yet at the same time, it's quite uncommon. So only when you really systematically work reducing restraining forces in these earlier phases, you get there. The last phase of this is the integration phase, when also the outside information is integrated in the team. Okay, any questions about this triangle? Any questions at all about what I've said so far? Does it make sense?
Yes.
What I'm quite curious about is I guess also from the rest to kind of hear that if there's any resonance around some of this when applied to Haifa, right? Like specifically around the phases, and do you recognize some of the phases, and can you identify where Haifa might be at the moment?
I know my personal one was like, I can see where I shifted from flight to fight, like where I stopped just being kind and trying to be submissive to everything and stand up for my voice, and it really started to change for me quickly.
Mm.
Yeah, so Carly, you basically you say you noticed that you made this step from flight to fight when you started to let yourself be heard.
Yeah, and I got really alienated. It was really interesting to watch it go down really fast. I thought everyone was like good with honest communication and stuff, and it wasn't at all the case. But I didn't have any context around it like this, because I just found, like, I figured that I needed to play a small game for the first few months to get to know everyone and like just be helpful, and then at some point I could have my own autonomy. And as soon as I started pushing out for like, you guys know me now, you know that I'm up to, like, can I just go and do what I want to do? And that was not welcomed very well.
Thank you. And any other answers to Joost's question?
I'd also be really curious if it doesn't resonate at all, right? If you say, I don't recognize it at all, that'd be lovely to hear as well.
Sorry, I was eating. Yeah, I recognize the first two phases, and they resonate deeply. I feel at least where I am in my path with Haifa, that it is definitely in the fight phase, and I see it in my team, and I see it in all the other teams and individuals, and yeah, it weaves its way in all around.
Thanks. So let's see. Let's make a next step in this exploration.
And can I just add one
Yeah.
small tiny reflection on that, because I think that recognition of moving from flight to fight, and my judgment of Haifa's inability to internalize and deal with that is really led me to initiate this session, to figure out, hey, can we build our skills to deal with that? Just want to call that out, that it so deeply resonates with me that we kind of get stuck. And there seems to be a bias to revert to flight to avoid the fight, rather than really take the information and learn it and integrate it. Just want to call that out because yeah, it was an important reason for me to step up.
I'm grateful for that.
If I can just comment out of my experience, so I see a lot of fights, so I recognize this. But in some of the groups that I've been working more closely, I do see a lot of acceptance of the fight and differences already. So some sense of convergence, not at a larger scale, but at least within the groups that I'm working more closely with. Okay, so and I wanted to acknowledge that.
So Paula, just for me to check to whether I have understood you well, you say that in a lot of groups or teams in Haifa that you work with, you see, is it compliance, what you said, or is it integrating differences?
I'm still trying to acknowledge the language of the framework, so I'm not sure if I did it correctly. But what I noticed is that we started with this sense of flight, so I can recognize this.
Yes.
And also immediately some tensions because, well, namely the bioregional mapping, which is the groups that I'm referring. the three persons on the core are quite different persons, okay? But I think we managed to integrate those differences as a plus already.
Right.
I think we're still in the process, so sometimes there are tensions there, but I think we are flying on that direction.
Right.
Not acceptance, but acknowledging, yeah, we are looking into different things, so let's put those differences into play and see how can we career out of that.
Yeah. So what I hear you basically say is that you have like developed a capability to integrate differences.
Yeah, I would tend to say so, yeah.
Yeah, great. Very nice to hear that. All right, let's take a next question. Any questions so far? Because we will now make the next step by building a force field. No questions so far. Let's look into what a force field is about. So what you really do here is, so it was maybe just the background of force fields, Kurt Lewin, who developed this, saying, well, when systems move towards a goal, there's always this equilibrium between forces that help it move towards the goal and forces that restrain from it from moving towards the goal. And he said, so what you need to do is find out what are those driving forces and what are those restraining forces. And when you have the overview, then and his theory was like, okay, I can then do two things to help move the system towards its goal. I can reinforce the driving forces, and I can weaken the restraining forces. And empirically, interestingly enough, we found, and he found, that weakening the restraining forces has a much higher yield than strengthening the driving forces. So the basic idea is that when you have a driving force and you strengthen that, very often the restraining forces will also become stronger. So the balance stays the same. And when you weaken the restraining force, the driving forces take the system towards its goal. So the step that I would like to take with you, and I will go to a different, I will stop sharing this for a moment and go to, I see new faces. Hello, Julio, welcome. And we'll share another screen with you. Can you all see this one? So
Yes.
what I would like to do with now is build this force field with you. And every force field, of course, has a goal. So the goal is here regenerative teaming in Haifa. And what we mean by that is teaming that really helps to realize your goals. And now the question is, what are the driving forces for regenerative teaming and what are the restraining forces? And just call them and I will type them in like this. And maybe ask you some questions about it, but.
I've got a driving force, tremendous intrinsic motivation.
Yes, that sounds like a very good driving force. And you can do driving and restraining. You could first do all the driving, or you could change in between. That doesn't matter. Just tell whether it's driving or restraining for you. Any more?
High sense of purpose.
High sense of?
Purpose.
Purpose, yes.
What about empathic listening?
Yes, so, and Julio, is this, what is very important in a force field is that you only take the things that you actually see, and it's not about the things that you would like to be. So now my question to you is, do you see empathic listening a lot in Haifa?
Well, I see it in some contexts, but
Okay.
in all the contexts, I'm new to the organization, so
Yes.
I can say that I've seen it in many contexts that I didn't see in my past experience. So I can say that this is present somehow.
Okay. So basically what you say is sometimes I see empathic listening, and therefore then it's a driving force, of course. Great, thank you. Any more driving or restraining forces that you actually see in Haifa? So we are trying to make like a picture of what the group dynamics in Haifa is at the moment.
I'd say ego for
Ego.
restraining forces.
Yeah, so that's Sarah, right?
Yeah.
Yes, so you say ego, and could you be a little bit more specific? What is it, the behavior that you see when you see ego?
People sometimes prioritize who is right instead of what is right.
Ah, nice.
Yeah, I don't know how to put this, like, but it's like a politics thing, like
Carly, could you just wait a second, because I cannot hear you now because I'm typing. Who is right instead of what is right? Is this right, Sarah?
Yeah.
Okay. Carly,
yeah, it's a politics thing. I think that's kind of what Sarah's hitting on, is like people are more concerned about their role and their power or something. There's like a power struggle going on, and it's a weird one because there shouldn't be any authoritative kind of power issues, right? Like not a lack of desire to just get along with that, to find consensus, to hear each other, to see.
Did I capture it right, Carly, like this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
okay.
more self-focused than organism-focused.
Okay, more self-focused than organism-focused. Nice.
Yeah, like testing their role or their thing, and it's like.
Did you say cell or self, Carly?
Self.
Did I write it right, Carly?
No, it's LF, like more focused on their own role, their own position. It's something that I saw a lot when I was working in like public work, where people were they wouldn't do the right thing because they needed to protect their job.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, what I like about cell and organism is that this is very much like two living. A cell is of course nested in an organism, so it's a very nice metaphor here. But now I have captured them both.
I've got one restraining force, scapegoating.
Ah, okay.
Oh yeah, and like projection.
Projections,
the
yes.
self and that's really important too, because there's like this self-focused thing, but then there's also this like grouping up, like this I feel like there's like this feeling of when I was in school and there was like a bully group that would like, they would kind of, I don't know how to say, like they organize together and then like will push people out and like get protective over there. So that's the sad thing, I think, that you're hinting at.
Did I write it? Is this the right way to capture it, Carly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
But it seems that we shouldn't be supporting that kind of behavior. That's the weird thing. It's like, it's like politics. If you got to get in with the right people, and then you can.
Yes, yeah, and let's focus on that later. Let's first try to get all the behaviors in, and we are doing very well, because these are all very concrete behaviors. What other behaviors do you see on the driving and the restraining side?
So it can be both. So the desire to change the current system, that's a driving force.
Yeah.
It's also a restraining force. It's trying so hard to fight the system. So it's actually the both sides of the coin. It's both.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm seeing.
Yes. This is very nice, and the way you articulated it, I think is very fitting for a driving and restraining force. So when the desire to change the current system is a driving force, but fighting the system as such is a restraining force, and exactly it is very close to each other. Any more driving or restraining forces for the HIFA team?
I have a restraining force is role ambiguity.
Okay. Yes. So basically, Joost, what you say is there's no real clarity on roles.
Yeah, we use them, we've defined them, but they're not quite clear yet. We're not actually
right.
So both the roles are not clear enough, and we're not really using them enough.
Right.
Can I propose that also from a driving force in that role ambiguity provides the flexibility to live how you want it to be? That's also a driving force within the HIFA system, which was in the beginning. You are allowed the agency and the drive to create something that you want to become, to have that role.
Lovely.
That's a driving force.
Yeah, but does that happen?
So let's not right now question what's being said, because what is like a driving force for Vivian,
or I would say not allowed, but you are encouraged.
Okay.
Or you're open to, like, so there is that, I think it's the word that I'm on the surface when they say, right? So I'm looking at sort of almost the aesthetics level, like what is presented. You are present, so because I know what Carly is saying, so I'm saying the driving force, there is that you are encouraged to create what you
and then there's obviously also a restraining force related to that. And what would that be? And maybe between Carly and you could find
well, that was sort of my opposed to the role ambiguity, because it's it's like because the role ambiguity, it's ambiguous because you're encouraged to create your role, which means that it is flexible, it's changing. So that is sort of what I'm trying to.
Yeah. Okay, I see what you mean. And Carly, you said yes, but that's a restraining force also. Could you explain?
It's put out that way. Like I was definitely coming in because I thought that's what we could do, but then when it comes down to it, it's not encouraged. Actually, the actual practice doesn't seem to be matching the words or the intention.
So because I think is it right that the sound is quite soft?
Oh, I'm sorry. I on my headphones.
Okay. Could you say it again, please? Because I really didn't get it.
Oh, it's just it's like they say that we have the intention of creating this, like these roles and stuff, but then in practicality, it's not really playing out, I don't think. Can you explain it better, maybe?
Sorry?
So it's not playing out, and then what you mean is it's not playing out that you can create what you want.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. The autonomy is not actually there.
Okay.
Hence the dependencies. So now there's structures in place that are creating hierarchies that are, I think, antithesis to what our intentions are.
Yes, and could you be more specific about the dependency, Carly? Who's dependent on what or on who?
There's no, so the current structure right now to create a circle doesn't exist. So they've created a system where in order to get into the organization, you have to go through a circle. And there's only one circle. So you have to come in through this one way, and that one way is quite political nowadays. So there's not really a way to have many people come in with many different working styles and many different personalities to find a role. It's like, if you, like I've been straight up told, if you don't get along with the people that are in Haifa right now, you have to go, because we're all working together and we all get along, basically. No way to account or accommodate other styles and personalities in the current structure.
Okay, did I capture it right?
Yeah, dependency and hierarchy would be another word to put it in.
Okay.
It's like creating hierarchy.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Any more?
Here, by listening to what the others said, I would like to change the one that I brought, because I would spell it differently. I think there is an willingness to solve the tensions. That's what I meant. I mean, people are trying to look at this. So we're not just moving away from this. So it's not empathic listening, but maybe willingness to look at the tensions, just to solve the problems, you know.
Oh, and on that, then I would say there's also an alienation going on. If that's your experience, I'm having the opposite experience of like, I cannot get to talk to, there's miscommunications and there's no process in place right now that someone can call a mediation or to get themselves heard. Like it's really easy for someone just to, like, if they don't want to deal with something, they just alienate you and ignore you. And there's nothing to stop them from doing that. No one's like, there's no culture set up there of like actual honest communication and working differences out.
I can contribute with one, again, I think it's a dual kind of thing as well, which is this willingness to co-create that results in attention of really doing stuff, right? Understanding what needs to be done, right? So the wrong balance there, eventually.
Good. So Paulo, I put it down as a driving force, willingness to co-create what needs to be done. Is that what you first said?
It's willingness to co-create, which is a positive. The negative of that is that we lack sense of immediate goal or doing things in concrete. So by allowing this space, then some of the done gets affected, and this creates tensions.
Yeah. Okay. And when you say when you say we lack a sense of an immediate goal, the way I interpret it is, your purpose is crystal clear to everyone, but of course a purpose needs to cascade down in more concrete goals and there you have there's a lack of immediate goals, or at least a sense of it.
A collective sense of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a good one, I guess.
Okay, let's hear it.
We are deciding too much based on consensus. So we're abusing consensus for lots of things, and this is slowing everything down.
Yes, this is a very interesting one.
So I have one. There's the driving force. So I comes in every time it's both, right?
Quality.
So is an openness to communicate with each other, that's the openness to communicate, the open to communication.
Okay.
If you want to write that first.
I don't. Yeah.
So there is a, let me finish.
Oh, sorry.
No, I mean, I was, so there's openness on the driving force, openness to communication. Yet restraining force is this, the lack of self-reflection of how their communication style affect others. So it's like that lack of the self-awareness of what is, how do you communicate? So those are both, right? Like that's what I'm feeling. They want to communicate, but there's something, it's like your people's style, communication style is very different. Just
Yes. So there's no self-reflection on how it works out on other people when you communicate.
or not just self-reflection, but mutual understanding. That sort of mutual, because like you can understand myself, but you also understand others. So there is that sort of mutual understanding.
Is it a lack of it?
I wouldn't say if it's a lack of it, but there is that restraining force that goes into the tools. I would go into the restraining force can be the form, the medium that we're using, how people communicate doesn't allow, it sort of limits the possibility to, it limits the space to nurture mutual understanding. So I'm using it, it's sort of, so there's two layers, right? First of all, like what we're using, which is Discord, which is quite linear. It doesn't create and mutual understanding, it's not linear. Mutual understanding is messy. It's all happening all at once. And so it doesn't have that space. So I'm not sure exactly.
Well, I captured it now like this: limited space to nurture mutual understanding. Does it?
Yes.
Come close? Good enough? Good. Yeah.
I have one. I see as a driving force and a restraining force an abundance of emotional intelligence and a lack of emotional intelligence.
Oh, okay. Great. And Julia, could you give examples of both of them?
I think it was Troy.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Sorry, it was Troy. Okay.
Well, I think it ties into a lot to do with communication style, and just just interpersonal dynamics.
Right.
Yeah.
I've got a similar one that's related. That's both, I think, driving and restraining, and that's radical honesty. It's beautiful that we see that a lot. So I think that's driving, and I think it's restraining because it's used to dump all your shit and just stop there.
I would add one more, the lack of clarity on the power distribution.
Mm-hmm.
Here.
Wait a second. I thought there was no power distribution, guys.
There is, but it's on the shadows. That's the worst part, because it's not clear which role is making which decision, what's the domains, what's the clear domains. So since we don't have this clarity, no one is actually making the decision, but everyone has to make the decision. So it's obscure to me.
Yeah, and there's one more layer, and that's the implicit power structure that's rooted in the unexplored that's even, you know, rooted in founders showing up early like, you know, there's all this power that is there yet not explicit.
So that's the shadow power distribution, right?
Yeah, that's very much related.
Yeah.
Yeah, and can we have about like what we say we're about is different than how we're actually playing the game? Like, we have this game guide written, and then when I go in and read it, it's like even some of the tools aren't developed yet of that, you know, we're lacking some of the actual hardware to do what we want, or the software to do what we want to do.
Okay, so how shall I capture this, Carly? Could you give me a hint?
Lack of tools to carry out the purpose, maybe.
Oh.
At the current moment, it's not that they're not coming, but it is attention.
Perhaps like incomplete self-organization tools.
Yeah, well, and a lot, yeah, I guess it is a self-organization, like the whole thing around circles, like everyone's like, oh, let's start your own circle. And it's like, okay, how do I do that? Well, we don't really have that yet. I mean, it's growing pains. I get it.
I feel that too. I share that restraining force.
Mm. Okay, what I really love is the energy that you show in identifying all these driving and restraining forces, and I feel we could go on for quite a while. So the flow is great. For time's sake, my suggestion is to just take it from here. It's a very good analysis for the moment of driving and restraining forces. And what you see, I think, is when you look at it, there's very good driving forces. The enormous, tremendous intrinsic motivation, the high sense of purpose, they're related, of course. Also, willingness to look at tensions, solve problems, desire to change the system if needed, willingness to co-create, openness to communicate, the abundance of emotional intelligence, very important, and the radical honesty. So there's a lot in the driving force column that will help you reach your goals. However, there's also quite a few restraining forces. And when we look at that, it is relatively normal. And of course, when you have a very high purpose, you may think that the way you behave between one another would be also at a very high level, but that's not necessarily so. So what you see here is what we see in most teams: the scapegoating, the projections, the bullying, the authority issue. When we talk about trying hard to fight the system, which is a very, very universal team characteristic, is what we call the authority issue. So not taking anything from anyone, not accepting authority from anyone. I really love this one, more cell-focused and organism-focused, because this is really what systems is about. Look at the bigger context. So when you're a cell in the HIFA system, look at the organism and see what the organism needs rather than what the cell needs. So this is really, and I know that I misinterpreted it. It was more cell-focused and organism-focused, but it's really nice. Yeah, and of course, ego. I mean, where do we not have ego? And power. So this is also like everywhere. I think in the second half we got to a number of restraining forces that are also really important. Role ambiguity. It's very hard to, you remember this triangle with role, goal, and context in the top. When you don't have when you're not well organized, this is really about how you're organized. Have clarity on roles, have clarity on purpose and goals. You really have a problem. Um, and dependence and hierarchy is, of course, also very, it's a very normal, that's a restraining force, but it's also something to try to overcome. What I find really interesting is also the lack of collective sense of the immediate goals. So the purpose is very clear, and that's what we saw at the driving side. Tremendous high sense of purpose, but then what do you do next? What does that mean in the cascade of goals? And so it is very important to look at that. This role, goal, and context also. It's easy to alienate and ignore you. This, of course, is painful and also important to explore. Here's again the immediate goal. Deciding too much on the basis of consensus. This is I think self-organization systems like Holacracy or others really focus on not doing that. As we know that when everything needs to be decided through consensus, you are not at all an agile and quick decision organization. This takes tons of time and tons of group dynamics to get somewhere. Lack of self-reflection on how one works on other people is a very important one as well. Dumping all your shit and just stop there is, I think, is something to look at as well. Here we have another role called contexting, lack of clarity on the power distribution, the shadow power distribution. No one's making decisions, lack of tools for self-organization. This is all role call and context. So when you look at all the restraining forces, you see there's a lot of role call context work to be done. Meaning clarify goals, maybe not your highest purpose, but everything underneath, what circles need to have in terms of goals. Clarifying roles that help realize the goals and seeing the context. So there's a lot of work to be done. Also, there's a lot of work to be done in terms of communication. We see that in the alienation, the ignorance, the bullying, all the things that's been said there. And of course, consciousness or awareness of your phase of development is extremely important, because then you can normalize what happens rather than complain about what's not good. Okay, so that brings us to the break. After the break, we will start exploring some of the basic SCT tools that could help you overcome these restraining forces. So see you in 20 minutes time, 19 minutes time, I'd say, and look forward to continue our work.
I'll put a timer. If you can stop
Nice.
sharing your screen, I'll put a timer on the screen so everybody knows when we need to be back.
Great, thanks.
See you guys in a tick.
Welcome back, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So what we've done so far is we just looked at at the theoretical background of SCT, and we made a force field of driving and restraining forces for HIFA with the goal of creating a regenerative team environment. Let's now look at one of the basic tools of SCT, and we are going to work with it in 2 stages. And for that, I will share my screen again. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So this exercise is about active listening. And in the force field, we had one driving force, which was called empathic listening. And it was changed by Julio after a while, but listening to each other in a team is one of the key things to allow differences to come in. And maybe you recognize that very often when we say things, someone else yes but comes with a yes but, and then what I said is just ignored or thought. This exercise, we call it on the pen, but it is really about learning how to paraphrase. And paraphrasing is essential in applying SCT. Why is it essential? What we notice, what we found out is that when you paraphrase someone else, the boundaries open. And this exercise is just to see how that works with yourself and how it is also to paraphrase someone else. So in a minute, we will go into breakout rooms in pairs, so in dyads. Joost will make sure that we all get in these breakout rooms. But before that, I just want to tell you what the exercise is about. It will take like maybe 10 minutes. It is about, the goal is to experience the difference between listening and interpreting. So first, one of two is A, and one holds the pen, any pen, doesn't matter what kind of pen, and say something to B, and you say something about something that is important to you. Keep it short, because else it becomes hard to paraphrase. So keep it short. B listens and then paraphrases A's message. So B says, okay, A, I hear you say this, this, and that. And then B observes, you can see in A's face whether the paraphrase is right or not. When it is, A then gives the pen to B. If it's not, then try to make it work. When B has earned the pen, it's her turn to say something, and then it's A's turn to listen and paraphrase. So just continue that cycle a number of times until you can actually reflect each other. Joost, you have a question?
Well, maybe explain what try to make it work means.
Okay, good, thanks. That was a little vague. Yeah, so when you notice that the reflection or the paraphrase is not working, you work together to make it work. So it's not a guessing game. It's about working together to make the paraphrase right. So you could ask, okay, so like A says, no, this is not what I meant. And then A will tell you what is still missing. And then they can complete the paraphrase. So that's what it means, working together to make a good join. We also call this joining. So is the exercise clear? And are you willing to try it?
Yes.
All right. Then I have two observation questions for you. When you do this exercise, pay attention to first, what happens to you when your team member paraphrases what you say? And the second question is, how does it feel to paraphrase the other team member? So these are the two questions that we will explore when you all come back from the exercise. All right. When everything is clear, Joost, would you please teleport us to the,
Yes.
the breakout rooms?
Vivian has a question.
Oh, sorry.
Do you have a prompt? Because it's actually a prompt or questions that we can actually start that conversation?
Yes, please.
That's the first question, and I guess as a first request. And the second is, when we're paraphrasing, are we focused on, because I'm thinking of like, do you want to, we focus on just what happened, what they say, versus like the deeper level of
Yeah.
state
So
of
that's two beautiful questions. So it's first a prompt. So you mean a start sentence or something like that?
a prompt, as in sort of something that get us into the question, like
Okay. Well, I have a proposal. Joost and I will just demonstrate it. Maybe then it becomes more clear. Is that right? Would that help? And then I will address your second question. Okay. So Joost, we'll start. Would you like to start saying something, or shall I do it? What is your preference?
I've got a pen, so
Good.
maybe I should say something, and then you can earn it.
Yeah.
Let me make sure I don't lose it. What will I share? I'll usually just focus what's alive in me and something that is relevant to share. I sense a little bit of nervousness inside myself right now, because I all of a sudden am in the spotlight, and I wasn't expecting that.
Right. So I hear you say that you have some nervousness all of a sudden because you're now in the spotlight and you didn't expect that.
Yes, got it. Right. I digitally give you my pen.
Thanks. Got it. Yeah. I experience the same nerves. I feel it in my belly, and that is because we are really going to try to work with SET now, and I'm not sure what the outcome will be. So that's what I feel a bit nervous about.
So Peter, you have a nervousness, you feel it in your belly around actually starting to use SET right now, and you're not quite sure where that's going to go.
That's it.
Get that right?
Thanks. Yeah. And I think for the moment, thanks Joost for demonstrating it. Vivian, does it give you a clue on how this works?
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you.
And now on your second question, which I think is a beautiful question, the way I interpret your question is this: is this about content only, or is this also about the deeper experience? Right? That was your second question.
I think it's just, I think what you just demonstrated clarified, because I was thinking about, there's the emotion, because I'm thinking of, I'm using different theories that I have, right?
Right. Okay.
So for me, it's very much, are we just listening to what people say and repeating it versus trying to go into the emotion at a deeper level, that surface of that conversation. So I really want to clarify that listening part, what level I'm listening in.
Yes, it is. So I really love the question, because this is what this is about. It is listening both with your mind and with your heart. So it's both of them. And sometimes it will be more rational, and sometimes it will be more emotional, depending on what the sender is doing. But it is about integrating both levels.
And maybe a tiny bit of extra framing there that I find quite useful. If somebody's paraphrasing you and you don't feel the connection emotionally, make them work. Make them actually state something that you feel resonates. Yes, you got me now. If you didn't get me, no, I was actually angry. Make sure that somebody actually gets that. So it's out there. So yes, now you heard me.
Nice.
Now I'll give you the pen.
Yeah. Great. So are we all ready and set for this exercise? Take 10 minutes. So we'll be back at the hour.
And I will join, because we've got uneven. I will join one session and I'll pull us all back because I can do that at the hour.
Right. Great.
Awesome.
See you in 10 minutes.
See you guys. All's right. And then, is everybody going? Is it working? Yes. Oké, en nu moet ik mezelf er ook nog in gooien. Tot zo, Peter.
Tot zo. Now that you've done this exercise, let's focus on the first exploration question. How does it feel when your team member paraphrases your message? And I will stop sharing so we can see each other. So what is the feeling when someone paraphrases you? Could you just share some of your impressions there?
I can start. So
Please.
I feel myself, I feel visible and heard.
Nice. You feel visible and hugged. Yeah, nice.
Heard, that people listen to me, not hugged.
Yeah, yes. Oh, heard. You mean, okay. Well, it's very close.
I'm also a pretty good hugger, by the way.
And it has that quality.
Yeah. Okay, so Paolo, basically you feel seen and heard. Yeah. Any other responses? What is it that you experience when the other person paraphrases you?
Connection.
Yeah.
If you're connected to the other person, I feel like I can just be myself. You know, I can be present, and it's not offending anyone else. You know, so it's
right. Connected. Nice.
Yeah.
Any more impressions?
That felt sense of the curiosity to engage with each other. There's that connectedness of it built when, especially in this kind of online space, there's a felt sense of.
So there's a curiosity to engage, connection. Yeah, nice. Carly, you want to say something, I think.
I echo Paulo's comment, and echo Paulo's comment.
Carly, could you say that again, because the noise is very soft.
I can paraphrase. I think she said she echoes Paulo's comments.
Okay. Thanks. Any more impressions of what it is like to be paraphrased? I think we did not hear from you, Troy, yet.
My first impression was a self-reflection that maybe I'm not expressing myself clearly. And the second impression is a mutual understanding.
Yeah. Right. So your first impression is maybe I'm not expressing myself clearly, obviously, because the paraphrase didn't match what you thought you said. Is that right?
Correct. Yes.
And then maybe after you repaired that, you felt the mutual understanding.
Yes.
Yeah. Great. Okay, and now we switch to our second exploration question. What was it like to paraphrase the other person? What did you feel? What did you experience when you paraphrased the other one?
I felt again, a deep sense of connection and understanding.
Mm. So you really enjoyed doing it, paraphrasing.
Yes.
Yeah. Any more reactions to the act of paraphrasing?
Yeah, so it's funny.
I had a hard time.
Sorry, we have two people at the same time. I think Carly was first.
Oh, I was having a hard time because, can you hear, like, you guys are having a hard time
We can hear you now.
hearing me, huh? I was focusing so hard and then also going into the deeper meaning without just staying on the surface of like trying to stay into exactly what he was saying. Like I was having a hard time not going deeper.
Yeah. Okay. So, Carly, I hear you say you had a hard time doing this because you wanted to get to a deeper level. And my guess is that you were partly also interpreting rather than paraphrasing. Is that right?
Yeah, and I realized that's not what the exercise was. So I was feeling. I failed.
Well, this is not about failing, but indeed. So this is really so. When you what we notice is that there's a very big difference in experience when you get paraphrased or interpreted. In general, when we are interpreted, very often we feel that it's not exactly right. This is not what we meant. When we are paraphrased, we know the other person not just heard what we said, but also understood what we said. So that's where the difference comes in. And what we notice, why we use this tool so often and so intensively, is that as soon as you start paraphrasing, the boundaries of the other person open, and you see that now reflected in the experience of feeling connected and feeling understood and seen. These are expressions of open boundaries. And of course, when your boundaries are open on two sides, you can have a real exchange of information. You can really have differences let differences in and integrate. So therefore, this is such an important, it's a simple, basic technique and has enormous implications when you start applying it, when you start using it. Okay, thanks for all this good information. Yes, Julio.
Peter, I'd just like to add, I was with Carly on the exercise, and I think it was easier for me to paraphrase her because she brought a very light experience that she was having, and it was very easy. But then I brought something that was not so easy, some uneasiness I was feeling, and I felt that she connected with it in a way that she was also experiencing it. And then it was very hard for her to just listen to me. And I think maybe she tried to visualize her own pains regarding to that. And then it was harder for her to follow on the process of listening. Maybe that's what I feel somehow guilty as well, Carly.
Yes, that's what I hear. So
not bringing an easy situation.
Yeah, you come Julia, you come to her rescue.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is not about good or right or about this is just about exploring what the experiences is, right? So, and this is interesting because this pattern of saving each other, do you recognize it as an effort on your side, Julio, to save Carly? Yeah. Is that a common pattern in Haifa?
I think there's a lot of like codependent type of personality things coming in and narcissistic personality traits, like those kind of like things are happening for sure. Like where I'm having struggles and people will reach out to me to just give me like I see you, I feel you, like kind of stuff. But yeah, trying to help and trying to just be empathetic with each other, which is really beautiful.
Yeah. So when you in SCT, we make a distinction between caregiving and caretaking, and I think it's an important distinction. So caregiving is when everything that you do from your heart. So when your heart urges you to help someone or to give someone something or whatever, we call that caregiving, and caregiving is great and is wonderful, and all of us know caregiving. When you are caretaking, you are doing that from thoughts. You have thoughts about someone else, thinking, oh, she will feel maybe a little bit on the defense, or maybe she has a difficult time. Let me do something to save her. And the essence of caretaking is that you, in a sense, although it looks like you're helping the other person, the autonomy of the other person, you take it away for a little bit, for part. So we are very sharp on that, because when you caretake, you're not free, and the other one is not free either. All right, so let's take our next step, and I see that we have Nicolas joining us, Diana joining us, and Ricky joining us. Welcome, all of you. We just finished an exercise called Earn the Pen. And this is, and you may have heard that, this is about paraphrasing. It's a central technique in SCT. As we know that paraphrasing opens boundaries. And when you have open boundaries, you can integrate differences. Now we'll extend this to a form of using the paraphrasing in a group. We call that functional subgrouping. And let me share my screen again to walk you through that. So functional subgrouping is the basic method of SCT, and the goal is to keep the boundaries open for information to flow. And then, when do you use functional subgrouping? You don't use it for everything. It's a technique that you use in specific circumstances. First and foremost, you use it when you have irritation, yes-butting, conflict, and what we call all of that, we have differences in a system that cannot be processed. So then functional subgrouping is extremely effective, because when, for instance, when you have a yes-but pattern, someone says something that someone else comes in with a yes-but, there's another yes-but, etc. Then you have no receiver anymore. There's just sending information, because as soon as the yes-but comes in, the boundaries close. You don't want to hear what the other person has to say, because you know that it's a rejection, basically, of what you've said. So this is when opening the boundaries. We noticed in the exercise that paraphrasing opens the boundaries. Is extremely effective. When you are in an argument, for instance, with your spouse, it's very hard to continue the argument when you start paraphrasing the other person. Just experiment with that. It's really very hard. And that's the same in teams. So you use functional subgrouping as soon as differences become a restraining force. Second, you use it when you want to explore underlying levels of the relationship in a group. Longings, wishes, ideas, etc. This method works very, very well to get to deeper levels of understanding. And that also has to do with the fact that you open your boundaries. Do not use it, for instance, when you want to brainstorm about ideas. Then it's not so functional. And there's many other instances where you shouldn't use it. But these two are really important points to use this technique. All right, let's see what the technique looks like. This is the 5 rules. It's very basic. So you give your input to the group about the topic, and we'll discuss in a second what the topic will be that we'll use. And you close by saying anyone else. And that's important that your input is short. And that is, of course, because it's very difficult to paraphrase a long input. Then you have to, and it's also boring. So keep your input short. Then everyone else, and you say anyone else, and the anyone else is like an invitation to the group to join you. And you should, it makes sense to say anyone else also in that way, like an invitation. Then anyone, all the other people in the group find how they can join the other person by paraphrasing what she said. So just say, okay, Daddy, I heard you say this, this, and this. And look at the other person. And when you feel that she is or he is joined, then you add your build to what he said. And you close by saying anyone else. So that's the cycle, so to speak. So you join and build and join and build. Now, of course, we are talking about differences, and it could very well be, and very often it is, almost always it is, that one or more people in the group have a difference in the sense that they want to discuss, they have a different view or different feeling or whatever. Now, the normal way when we bring our differences in normally is with yes, but. You say yes, but, and then whew, our difference comes in the group. That's not what we do in this technique. What we do, you ask the group, is there room for a difference? So that's the alternative for yes, but. Ask the group, is there room for a difference? And what you will find when you get more practice with this technique is very often there is no room for a difference at that moment. And that means that the subgroup that's working, that's how we call it, needs more time to explore. Then you hold your difference. So, and of course, I will be the process lead of this process. I will watch that your difference will get in as soon as there's space. So then when there's space, and then you bring in your difference, which could be a feeling or an opinion or whatever. And again, you close by saying anyone else, and then the whole cycle restarts again. So these are the rules. Do you have any questions so far about the rules? Are they clear? And of course, I will help you. In the beginning, it's a little bit uncomfortable. Good. I see one thumb from Ricky. That's good news. Are you all happy to try this out and just see whether this is working? Good. Nice. I really like that. Okay, so let's see what the topic is that we want to discuss. My suggestion is to start simply with your here and now experience. So what is it you experience here and now in this group at this moment that that would seed the conversation? And let's just see where that takes us. All right. So remember, be short with your input, say anyone else, then all the others think whether they want to continue, and then paraphrase. When it's right, build. When you have a difference, ask the group whether it's ready. All right. So let's take just half a minute to center ourselves. Make sure that we make a connection with our bodies and our hearts and our minds. And when We have when we are centered. Okay, so who wants to start starts, and then it evolves, and I will help you with the subgrouping process.
I can kick it off. I am really content and calm and really happy to be here with you guys. Anybody else?
I can continue. Adding to, I totally resonate with the calmness, and I want to even say I feel very peaceful. So this room you created feels very safe and peaceful to me. And additionally, I'm also excited to see what wants to unfold in this space, and I'm open for this. Anyone else?
I hear peace and contempt and happiness about this space that we're building, and yeah, that's what I hear. I hear openness and desire for connection, and also I also feel connected to this feeling. Anyone else?
I also feel the calmness, the content, the happiness, the connection, the and the peace, the peacefulness in the space. Feel safe. Anyone else?
Yeah, I hear you saying that you felt the peace in the space, the connectedness, and I can relate to that as well. I feel it. Also, the tone of our voice is just lowered. It was lowered as well, so I noticed this. Anyone else?
Troy, you're muted.
I'm sorry. I heard you say that you also felt the peace and the connectedness, but you also noticed the tone of voice has changed. I too noticed the tone of voice and the energy shift and this feeling of a oneness in how we feel. Anybody else?
Yeah, it's a feeling for me of like coherence, like that we've all dropped into the same space together. It's really beautiful. Anyone else?
And Carly, there was one word in what Troy said that I think that could help to paraphrase him.
Oh.
Troy, maybe you can help Carly. What did she miss in a paraphrase?
Please.
That I feel a oneness in the group.
So I hear you all say oneness. I hear try to say oneness, but also, or wait, and can you put the screen share back up with the rules? I feel the coherentness in that as well.
Okay, so you want me to share screen with the rules? Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and so there's a force field. I decided not to do that because this way we can see each other much better, and I think that's the most important thing. And I can help you with the rules. Is that all right?
Yeah, can we go through it one more time? I didn't speak up because I didn't feel like I understood it originally.
Okay, well, it will become more clear when we progress, I think. Okay?
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so who can build, join and build?
I hear you say that you were not aware of the rules, you were not conscious of the rules, and therefore you had some difficulty in intervening. And for me, this triggered this idea of how much we obey the rules or just follow what is here, and I wanted to share this. Anyone else?
I felt this as well. The need for clarity.
Julio, can you paraphrase Paulo first?
Yes, Paulo is saying that he heard the need for the clarity of the rules, and even though that's not entirely there, maybe I was lost in my
Maybe
own.
Paulo can help you.
Yeah, help me, Paulo, please.
I was wondering how much of the rules should we follow versus just noticing what is here.
Right. So, yeah, to follow the rules, to flow with the rule, with what we know about the rules, and not just worry about too much about having the full rules. That's what I heard. Anyone else?
So just is Paulo, is the reflection right? Is the paraphrase right?
Not precisely. So it's
okay. So what did Julio miss though? How can you help him?
It's even if you are not aware of the rules, just feel what is here and now.
Okay. So even if I'm not if you're bringing that, even if you're not aware of the rules, you want to feel what's here right now, the present. Right. Anyone else?
And can you build on that, Julio? So you have the right join. You can see that in Paulo's face, right? So his boundaries are open now. And now, what is your build on that? What new information can you bring in?
My build is to, I have this desire for clarity. I also have this desire for clarity with the rules, and but I also want to flow. I want to flow in the exercise, gaining more clarity.
I just don't.
That's it. Anyone else?
Who can join? Julio.
I can try. Julio, I hear you say, I'm not 100% sure. I'm gonna just try. I hear you say you want to have clarity around the rules, and you want to be able to flow and go with the flow. Did I get you right? Awesome. I think I hold a difference. So I'm happy to wait and park that for a second, but I notice I can't quite directly build.
Well, so Joost, when you hold a difference, you ask the group whether it's ready for a difference.
Yeah.
Now you are already anticipating that it isn't.
Good call. Is the group ready for a difference?
Yes.
Yep.
All right.
Now I need to sense I actually don't know what my difference is. I was just feeling it. I know it's just a shift in my and where I was. The oneness was kind of gone, and some tension in my belly showed that there's some nervousness.
Okay, and is it all right, Joost, when I just work with you for a second?
Yeah, please.
On the nervousness. So nervousness doesn't come out of the blue. It has one of three sources. Either it's a thought, so it's nerves from a thought, or it is nervousness from an unfamiliar body sensation, or it is nervousness from what we call the edge of the unknown, the place where we just don't know what will happen.
It's a thought.
Which of those? It's a thought.
It's a thought, yes.
Right, okay. And could you say, what is the thought?
Yeah, the thought is that I worry that, what's my worry? That this session is not valuable for you guys. That's my worry.
Okay, so we call that a mind read.
Yeah.
You read the minds of all the people in this group.
Yeah.
And the mind read tells you that the session is not valuable for them.
Yeah.
So the way we work with that is we check it. So are there some people in particular that you have this mind read of, or do you have it of the whole group?
The whole group.
Right. So the formula for checking a mind read is that you say, my mind read is, and then you say what your mind read is, and then you say, is that right? And you ask that one by one. You just start with Paulo and then go on.
Cool.
And the people you ask can only say yes or no. No explanations or whatever.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me see what the question is. Paulo, my mind read is that you think this session is not that valuable. Is that right?
No. Okay. You believe, Paulo?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Continue.
Danny, my mind read is that you think this session is not valuable.
No.
You believe her?
Yes.
Hmm.
Troy, my mind read is that you think this session is not valuable. Is that right?
No.
You believe him?
Yes. Vivian, my mind read is that I think you think this session is not valuable. Is that true?
No.
You believe her?
Yes. I'm really enjoying this. And my mind read is gone, so I don't have to go on.
Okay. Good. Yes, then it's fine. So what is it like to feel that, to notice when you check reality? This is reality checking.
Yeah.
So you have a mind read that makes you nervous.
Yeah.
And by checking it with reality, simply by asking, what happens to your nervousness?
Yeah, it's gone. It's filled with,
It's gone. Yeah.
with love and care.
Great. All right. So say anyone else, and so people can.
Anyone else?
I give it a try.
And maybe, and Danny, the only thing you have to paraphrase is you can say, okay, you had a mind read that you checked it and it was disconfirmed. So that's the only thing you have to say. You don't have to repeat the whole thing.
May I try a little bit different adding to that?
Yes, what you want, what you want.
I am, so paraphrasing, I heard and I felt your mind, how do you say mind?
Read, mind read.
Mind read.
Yeah.
And I observed how you were releasing it by asking everyone or some of us. And I could feel the joy that was evolving from that. And what resonates with me is actually that I really love the process of this very small experiment, but because this is exactly why I feel we are doing this today. And it's exactly what is needed for us to build trust and learn to articulate when we have mind reads or other things that are holding us back.
Nice. When you say anyone else, maybe we can see who can join you.
Yeah, anyone else?
Yeah, I hear you, Danny, about the learning about the mind reads and being able to use these practices. And I just see how many times this could have been so helpful, because I've been in meetings and I just wanted to call everyone out and say this and didn't have the tool. So back on whose comment, like, this is incredibly valuable in my book, and I'm excited to try these tools out. Anyone else? Oh, Peter, a question on that. So say someone, you have a mind read and what if someone said, yeah, this isn't valuable? Like, is there a next step to that of like, how do we address like, okay, so, okay, that would be my
lovely question. I understand the question, Carly. So your question is, what if someone says, okay, you're right, your mind read is right. I don't find this valuable. Well, to be honest, that happens a lot. So when we test these mind reads, very often they are right. A mind read is a speculation about reality, and it's in particular about what other people think or feel about us. That's mostly what mind reads are about. And what we find is that even when the mind read is confirmed, which happens very often, our anxiety goes down, because we say, okay, well, that's reality, you know? So you're not speculating anymore in your mind about whether this is true or not. And that's what eating us, that's what depletes our energy, the thinking about it. And when we are confronted with reality, you say, okay, well, when that's the case, I'm less anxious anyway. So this method always, this reality check always works, whether it's confirmed or disconfirmed. And very often, like Joost had this mind read of the whole group. And when you check mind reads in a group, you find very often that part of the mind read is confirmed by some of the people in the group and part is disconfirmed. And then also the anxiety goes down, not only with the person who checks his mind read, but also with the other people. Very interesting phenomenon. Does it answer your question? Kari, does it answer your question?
Yeah, it does kind of, but in the practicality of it, will we go through that session? Like, how do you resolve the conflict when you send something in the group, you call someone out, they either say yes or no, and you say yes, you believe them, or you don't believe them. Maybe you're like, no, I don't believe you, I think you're telling me shit. And then what do you say? You know, what's that next process as well?
Yeah. So now the next question on this technique is, okay, because you noticed that I checked whether Joost believed people yes or no. And that's an important check question, because especially when the mind read is disconfirmed, you can think, yes, that's what you say, but I don't believe you, right? That's what the mind could say to itself. Therefore, we ask this question. And when the answer is no, I don't believe it, or I cannot believe it, because the mind read is so strong, then the next exploration question is, what is it like to work in a team where you don't believe someone? So that's then the next exploration. Okay, so just this was a little timeout to do some reality checking. Reality checking is what we do in SCT all the time, because what we know is that our minds make us anxious, and they speculate and speculate, and by checking the reality, so we do that with mind reads, but also with other types of speculations like the negative prediction. You can also check that one. We get more into reality. So we get a reality testing climate. And that helps you as a team go through next phase of development. So my suggestion is let's reset and take another 10 minutes to subgroup around what is important for you as a group. And yes, Paulo, you raise your hand.
I just have another question, if you may. If not, we can park it to the group readiness for it. Because I felt like just I felt, well, something shifted. I had the same feeling.
Yeah.
And I didn't have time to process it myself. And if many of us perceive this, how can we explore this collectively or individually? How can we allow time for that? Because what just perceived, although we projected in some question thought, but I perceived the same kind of thing, and I didn't have time to explore. How can we allow space for that? If that makes sense.
Well, is there something right now that you want to check with the group?
Yeah, I could check. So, but I'm not sure because I didn't have the time to process it. So it might be that we were having a conversation on the rules and flow, and the tension between how the rules condition or enforce the flow. And there's something there that I think it's related with this, but this is just my thought. So I would like to confirm the thought.
Yes. So you said we did have a discussion about how rules and flow are balanced, right? What's the tension there? Right.
Yeah.
And then, of course, something else happened. A difference came in. Joost came in with a difference, which was a mind read, basically. And is it right that you now want to go back to this exploration of the tension between flow and
rules? That would be my mind read, and I would confirm it eventually. That could be a way of...
Yes, well, it's not a mind read. A mind read is a thought that makes us anxious. It's a thought about what others think or feel or whatever that makes us anxious. That's a mind read. Technically, from an SCT perspective, of course, there's no... But so that's how we define a mind read. And what I hear from you is a wish to continue the exploration. Is that right?
That's why I said I didn't process it well. So I was feeling some anxiousness, and it is related with this tension that I was holding. I don't know how to explore it.
May I paraphrase and build?
Yes, please.
To clarify. So what I'm hearing, Paolo, is that you feel a tension around leaving this conversation and stepping forward to another topic because there is some magic in this moment where we came to the point where we agreed on we're dancing in between rules and flow. And then Kali added up on that and said, yes, exactly, that is very often the case where we were stuck in a discussion in our groups because we didn't have this experience yet in this tool or experiment to use it. And when I paraphrase her right, she said she wished she had that and she wants to experiment with it in the future. So when I hear you now, Paolo, this is how I sense into it as well, what actually would be a good point to move forward, because it might help us solve some of the blockages we were having in the past. Anyone else?
So maybe let's check with Paulo whether he feels, first of all, do you feel joined?
Yes, but not completely.
What's still missing? What did she miss?
It's missing the sensation that the field shifted.
Ah, okay.
Right.
So maybe you can just give him that back, Danny. Then we are complete.
Yes, so I also sense this shift in the field from being very peaceful to having a little bit of a tension. I'm not very sure whether I catch everything you were sensing, but that was the shift I sensed.
Yeah, and when you paraphrase something, what you do now, Danny, is you build on Paulo. And paraphrasing is just giving back what you hear. So Gab, in this case, would be, okay, Paulo, I hear you say that something shifted in you when we made that, when we went to another topic, right? So it's paraphrasing is very technical in a sense, although it's also very emotional.
Is there room for more?
More for a build or for a difference, Julio?
For a difference.
Okay. Is there room for difference? I think so. Go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, what I was feeling at that time when I kind of tried to paraphrase Paulo and was not very successful at first, is that I was trying, in a sense, with a thought, maybe with a wish to find something new, a new way for the discussion to flow. And by doing that, I disconnected from Paulo, perhaps, and what I wanted to bring that is different is that I really needed for more clarity with the rules, you know, so we could flow better. So I feel more secure when I know the rules better, instead of just flowing and trying to figure out everything while we go. So in my perspective is I like the clarity and stability and knowing how I should play the game before starting to play it. So that's how I was feeling at the time.
Right.
Anyone else?
And yeah, great. And Julio, you notice that your input is quite long, so it's quite difficult to paraphrase that. And Vivian will do it anyway. Okay, great.
Paraphrase. I heard what Julio you said is you need the rules in order to feel safe and secure to follow the flow.
It's a very nice, concise join. Yeah, and you can see in Julio's reaction that his boundaries are open. So what's your build?
My build is my build on is actually taking a moment to just sit, to feel in what the tension right now. Just take in one moment to feel that tension. A minute.
Yes, and I think it's very important what you do. So you focus on the here and now bodily experience. So that and could you say where the tension is in your body?
The tension is in the belly. It's in the gut.
Right. And is it, yeah. And we consider attention in SCT as a straitjacket about a feeling that doesn't want to be known yet. Are you curious about what that feeling could be?
Yes.
Okay, then there's two ways. And you can either imagine that you're under a nice warm shower and that the shower melts away the straitjacket. That's one way. Or the other way is that you go into your tension with your attention, with your and try to find out what that feeling is. What which one of those two would you like to explore?
Would you mind repeating that? Sorry, would you mind repeating that again? Sorry.
Yes. So there's two. So the tension. We know that this tension is like a straitjacket around a feeling that doesn't want to show itself to ourselves. And the way, and you have expressed curiosity about what that feeling could be, right? So then there's two ways to explore that. One is imagining that you're under a shower, and the other one is going into that tension with your attention. Which one do you want to explore? Try the shower or going into the tension?
When I heard you say shower, immediately I have that sense of like coldness, just like a splash in my body.
Great. So you picked the shower, right?
Yeah. Well, that was the immediate sense, but then I can still feel the belly being warm, so I have mixed sensation at the moment.
Right. And is the belly? That's right. So the belly feels still warm. Is it also still tense or not? Because there's a difference. It's tense. Yes. So just imagine that this warm shower is on that place in your belly. Just imagine that it melts away the straitjacket around that feeling.
Okay. Well, I guess I'm sensing into the gut feeling now. It's all of a sudden there's heaviness.
Yeah.
In the gut. There's a weight.
That's a weight. You feel a weight. Yes.
I feel a weight.
Yes. And is that pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral?
It's actually quite painful because it's right on my back.
Ah, okay.
The sacrum area. It falls into a really sort of a rock. Like a rock that sits in like heaviness that sits right there.
Yeah. And could you, is the heaviness, is also a tension, I think, or not?
Yeah, it could be a tension. So it shifted from the warmth to the heaviness. So it kind of shifted, and the aesthetic shift. Just
so it shifted. So the shower made that shift.
Could be.
Right.
Yeah. So the sensation shifted from warmth to heaviness. Even so the form changes. The shift.
Yeah. And we are approaching our time boundary. So I would. Can you work with that? Is the heaviness familiar for you? Is it or is it a completely new bodily sensation?
It's not necessarily new.
Okay.
So yes. I'm ready to let that outside. I'll work that through on my own.
Okay. That's great. Thank you, and thank you for working with me. So like working with tension. So we it's very interesting how what we see in the group. So first we had the anxiety, then we had the tension, and that's exactly what the order is in which the restraining forces appear in a group. It's a pity we are reaching our time boundary, because then we could see what the next restraining forces are. We'll now shift our work to the checkout. And I realize it's a hard shift as we are in the middle of this exploration. However, there's a reality in a time boundary as well. So I pass the baton over to Joost.
Yes. who feels a little bit ripped out of the womb by that, because I was quite comfortable. But let's dive straight into that checkout, and I like to use the format that we usually use to reflect a little bit on this session. And what do you always say, Peter? Learnings. What's a nice list?
What surprises, learnings, satisfactions, dissatisfactions, and discoveries?
Yes, that one. So, and popcorn style, whatever one of those you have, share it, and then anybody can follow. With regards to this session.
I'll start. I really love this idea that we can have this group, the feedback, I've never heard like an active listening exercise to use with the group. My only concerns now is, so there's only a few of us on this phone call. How do we integrate? Can we use these tools when everyone else doesn't have them? Is kind of my concern right now. So with that, Danny?
And it's just anybody goes, popcorn style, right? So we don't have to do order. Anybody can just throw in, and you can do multiple in a row or after each other.
I'm really sad I missed the first 2 hours, but I will watch the recording. I love this kind of work, and thank you, Peter and Joost, for holding the space and organizing it. And I totally agree to Kali. I wish we find a way how to integrate it and make it, how do you say, make it accessible for everyone who wants to co-create and dance and play with us. Thank you.
I've got a big satisfaction in the engagement of everybody that was here. It was lovely to see. I feel warmed by it.
I feel grateful that Joost brainstormed this and brought this to us, and brought Peter to for this learning for all of us. It's been really amazing, and I hope we can continue this and bring this to everyone else. Thank you.
I also have a lot of gratitude to Joost and Peter for holding the space, and just there's a lot opening to our kind of, I felt a sense sometimes like with the rules, we like to challenge our rules in order to go with the flow, but it's how there's a sense of playfulness that I'm feeling in this. And so thank you, and it's something that it was enjoyable to have that experience and learn something new. So thank you, both of you.
As someone who joined much later as a witness, I feel very inspired and joyful at these types of buildings and intertwining of human beings. I look towards kind of rules is the wrong word, but I look towards kind of the process of what happens after. The tension is building community and love and heart and appreciation for each person, and then also balancing delivering something that we are collectively creating. And so to be able to flow quickly through both of those, so that we are embracing and increasing the hearts that we all feel for each other, and at the same time increasing our efficiency and skill in manifesting in the world.
I was surprised at the power that we have by building this force field with the things that are helping against forces against and pro the situation. I usually like to build a list of tensions without this color of if it's against or pro, but I recognize the power of, just being able to name the things that are helping, because we saw actually how attention can be on both sides in a sense. So it was great to see this and really be able to be thankful and grateful for the forces that are acting in favor, and having clarity on the ones that are hindering the movement. So it was surprisingly enlightening to do that. Grateful. Thank you.
And with that, guys, I want to honor our time boundary. We are at 3 a.m. for me, so I think I need some sleep. But I thank you all very, very much. I'll leave you with one promise, that this type of work for me is crucial for any self-organizing organism, so that we can build a resilient tribe. Without it, we will fall over. So my promise is that I'll pursue this type of work. The form, as yet, we're experimenting, but expect more of this type of work. And please reach out with any input and ideas on how to anchor that better, because my role cares. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks,
It's been a pleasure, and we'll see you guys all soon. For me on the other week, because I'm going into my weekend. Bye, lovely people. Thanks, Peter.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Ah, kijk, zijn we nog heel veel met z'n tweeën.
Ja, dat is goed. Kunnen we nog heel even napraten.
Ja, fijn. Ik ben wel moe, maar ik ben wel tevreden.
Ja, ik ook.
Ja.
Mooie groep mensen.
Ja.
Echt een mooie groep mensen. En zoals een Danny en zo'n Vivian. Wat een kwaliteit, zeg.
Ja, echt fantastisch.
Fantastisch. Ja.
En ik vind dat echt heel mooi om te zien. Dus wat ook wel mooi om te zien, van als je zegt van goh, even laten we ons even gronden, of dat iedereen precies weet, even centeren, dat iedereen precies weet wat er moet gebeuren en dat dan ook gebeurt. Dus
ja, precies. Ja. Nee, heel mooi. Ook Paulo, ook heel gaaf.
Ja.
Dus veel kwaliteit in die groep.
Ja.
Echt leuk.
Ja, en het is dus een derde van de groep.
Ik weet het. Ja.
Dus er is veel meer.
Ja, we zijn Reiki weer kwijtgeraakt. Hè? Die was er even, maar...
Ja, en ik weet niet eens zeker wat de Reiki was, die er was. Want ik denk het haast wel. Want Reiki en Sisi, dat is een koppel. En ik heb vandaag een paar berichtjes van Sisi gekregen waar ik veel mee samenwerk op Reiki's account. Dus ik wist niet helemaal, ik denk dat die het was. Maar ik had wat berichtjes van hun gekregen, maar ik heb dat even niet gelezen nu. Want volgens mij zaten er bij hun wat spanningen over het een of het ander. En dat ga ik eventjes uitvogelen wat daar zit. En me er niet verantwoordelijk voor voelen.
Zo is het.
Zit er nog wat meer? Nee, dat is het eigenlijk wel. Ja. Ik zie heel veel aanknopingspunten om verder te kijken. Ik denk dat het wel van belang is om dan ook concreet, als dat er komt, om dat te verankeren in een wat concreter voorstel. Waarbij we gewoon echt gaan kijken van hoe ziet dat eruit.
Ja.
Daar zou ik wel naartoe willen werken. Maar eerst even slapen.
Lijkt me heel goed.
Oké.
Hey, dankjewel Joost.
Jij ook bedankt Peter.
Graag samenwerken.
Ja, meer van dit graag.
Ja, doen we.
Oké, hele fijne dag.
Slaap lekker straks.
Dank je, fijn weekend.